Etude 6, Reflection. So Etude 6 is probably the most, or I would say the closest to a technical study, if you will, because this is one where I specifically had a technique in mind, and I also wanted to use this to illustrate how I use chord voicings as arpeggios, or something that I refer to as a voicing arpeggio. And this is a concept, as I mentioned in the book, that I picked up from my lessons with Tim Miller. And this concept opened up a lot of doors for me for improvisation and being able to access all my chord tones at will, um, well, from any given point of the fretboard, no matter the chord. Basically, it opened up doors for me to visualize all my harmonies as lines. And you'll find echoes of this in Etudes 2 and Etudes 5 that are more linear in nature. And even through my improvisations, you'll find that this is a very, very prevalent concept. So let's get right into it. First, I'd like to tackle the technical aspect. Or actually, before we get to the technical aspect, I'd like to talk about just the voice leading. Bear in mind, what you can do, I would suggest this first, is try condense this all into a chord shape, and then look at the voice leading. Because this way, you're actually mapping out where you're going to play, so that you're not thinking of each individual note, you're thinking of a unit. And this is, I think, the key to being able to use this technique. You have to visualize a chord shape as itself, and then kind of break apart the chord shape to figure out, okay, what notes do I have? So this is an F major 7 sharp 5. We've got tonic, root, sharp 5, major 7, major 3rd. And then knowing where to access all of that. But first, what I would recommend before even getting into the technical aspect, play them as chords. Play the whole exercise as just a giant chord melody, if you will. And you'll begin to see how every chord relates to the other, or how every motion works, especially this bass line motion here towards the end of the B section. And then even stuff like, and so on and so forth, until you get to the end of the etude. And this will help really open things up for you. And it'll prepare you to start visualizing this stuff in your own ways. So you could maybe take a standard tune and apply this entire concept. So, for example, let's say a tune like All the Things You Are, you can take all these voicings, voice lead them, and then create arpeggios out of them. Now these are just basic drop 2 structures. You can, and a chordal voicing thrown in there, but you can open this up to really any chord you can think of. And this begs the question, well, this really makes a point in saying the more chords you know, the more options you have for your lines. So this is actually part of why I went into such a deep study for harmony. Now let's actually get to the technique. Now that we've discussed a lot of the harmonic idea, this will cover the technical aspect and also part of the articulation. So you really want a clear, defined sound for this. You want to hear every note. You want it to be crystal clear. Now, much like with Etude 3, Reminiscence, you can go one of 3 ways. You can do whole classical fingerstyle thing, which will actually work quite nicely if you've worked with that technique. You can go the Steve Morse route and alternate pick everything. If you can do that, alternate picking, congratulations. I cannot do that to save my life. And this is why I decided to use hybrid picking, because for me, I can get clearer structures that way, and that helps me figure out the sound for this etude. So this is the only etude where I've marked a pick stroke, or really how to approach your right hand for this. And it's very important to note. So ascending, that's where the hybrid picking comes in. And you've got downstroke, middle finger, downstroke, middle finger. But then what happens is on the way down, you get this little inside picking motion. So you have down, finger, down, middle finger, downstroke, upstroke to set up the downstroke again to repeat the phrase. So what I would do, maybe if you're just starting to apply this, start with the pick motion, or start with the right hand motion, and really define that. If even that's too fast, just to get that running, because this, you're going to maintain this. This is never going to change. And it's almost autopilot. You just have to think about where your left hand goes. Case in point. Next chord. And so on and so forth. Now, so I would really pay a lot of attention to how your right hand is moving for this etude. Bear in mind that you might want to work on your left hand fingerings as well, because one thing I discovered, and this is actually quite interesting, is that, sure, if you visualize the chord, this is automatic, and kind of it will, if you have your right hand technique together, it will create the desired effect you would like. But sometimes the left hand fingering can alter the clarity of which you play. So I found, for example, in that very last chord of the A section, that E flat minor major 7 with 13, I found if I played it like this, for some reason when I played it slow, it was fine. But then the minute I brought it up to speed, it's like my left hand couldn't keep up with my right hand using this exact fingering. And it started to get very sloppy. Whereas if I played this, the low E flat, where I played this entire phrase with just these three fingers as opposed to the pinky, phrases start to sound a little clearer. Oh, sorry. And I didn't have to think as much or I didn't have to prepare as much mentally to play that segment of the piece. Now, regarding articulation, I haven't really stated anything, just because it is kind of difficult to focus on your dynamics when you are playing with this kind of technique and playing an entire piece with it all. So I've left this as a blank slate for you all. And if you want to try emphasizing dynamics, that'd be fantastic. And it's a great way to study, okay, how to alter dynamics in the middle of a line. And that'll give another dimension or another layer of added depth to your playing. So have fun with this etude, and I'm sure you guys can take some useful information out of it. Hope this helps.